Welcome everyone to the next episode of our Pokemon Emerald playthrough. Now this is an episode which really shows one of those classic times in the older Pokemon games where you can run around spending a lot of time not achieving much. So I'm going to give you a too long didn't read or too long didn't want to include the whole thing quick rundown. After finishing Brawly, I went off in search of Mr. Steven Stone to deliver the letter. I started off by battling the fisherman on the beach before going full steam ahead into the cave. Now, what I really gained from this experience is just how much the games have changed in regards to needing things like HMs to be able to do things throughout the game. Because normally in the later versions, in your Pokemon Sun, Pokemon Moon, Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu, they pretty much give you the item that you require before you go ahead and enter into that area. But in these older games, I had really forgotten how, if you don't like going up and talking to people, you can really go around and avoid being given things because the game doesn't go out of its way to give you stuff. And I think that's probably what they wanted to change going forward, because people needed to have their hands held a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those things where I hadn't been given it, so I figured it wasn't something that was readily available. But yeah, that hiker was very important, and I've just run straight past him. And I just wanted to highlight some of the Pokemon that I've caught. So I did catch a Makuhita, and then I just wandered around aimlessly in the dark trying to find Steven Stone, running into large amounts of Abra, which kept showing up, but I continually kept failing to catch it. As you can see from throwing a great ball at it, hoping that I'd get lucky and catch it, because it is something that I would like to include on my team going forward. The other Pokemon that I'd like to include is an Aaron, but unfortunately I continually kept one-hit KOing it with Water Gun or Mud Slap, and then its defense is way too high for me to be able to weaken it fast enough with Tackle. So this one was another one of those infuriating situations where there were ones that I was running into where I would have been very happy to catch them, but they just kept dying, or fainting in this case. I then decided I needed to go get Flash in order to get through this part. It wasn't something where I could stubbornly walk around and just run into Steven Stone. So I went back out and spoke to a lovely NPC at the door who gave me Flash, and then I went in search of a Pokemon that I would be able to teach it to. Now, this is one of the things where, for some reason, I always had it in my mind that I would be able to teach it to something that you'd be able to find in the cave. You'd think that being in a cave, in my mind, something like a bat or something like that would be able to learn it. But yeah, apparently not. And then I also realized that Dewford Town does not have a Pokemon for whatever reason. So while I am here healing my Pokemon, I just do a quick search around the island. And I can't find anywhere to restock my Pokeballs because I'm running low on that, and I also wanted to get another escape rope. But yeah, so just not sure what's going on there. But yeah, I'll just check on what I've got here, and I don't have anything at the moment that's able to learn it, unfortunately. I wouldn't expect any of those three to go in there. But yeah, you'd think that something that's in these caves would be on hand, available to be able to help you out in this sort of situation, but I guess they were still making it a little bit difficult back in these days. So obviously I don't think Aaron can learn it. I never actually checked whether it could, but yeah, it was one of those ones where just running around trying to catch something, just trying to find something to help me out. And I did try a number of different methods in order to catch one of these guys, subbing out for something that was around its level. But geez, these steel-type Pokemon have amazing defense. It's one of the reasons why I really wanted to include it on my team, because I find them to be a very defensive Pokemon, and I think Aggron is just such a awesome final evolution to have. It does take a while to get him up to be in that final evolution stage, but I think it'll be worthwhile once we do get there. And I did look into it, and I realized that, because in the previous episode I was talking about looking into getting a decent fire type to handle May's main, Grovyle, since obviously having the water type, it's at a bit of a disadvantage in terms of the type matchup. But yeah, so there aren't any decent fire Pokemon you can get your hands on in early game, and even the ones that are available later on really aren't that great. So I decided to go for a different strategy and just find what I had available for me. And yes, here we are. Just a highlight of me finally weakening an Aaron enough. It took out my entire team, as you can see there. Just going through each one, just going tackle, getting it down low enough. But yeah, getting it and catching it, so adding it onto the team. That's so I'd say it'll be a permanent fixture on this team. So then, realizing that I'd run out of Pokeballs and there wasn't a Pokemart on Dewford Town, I headed back to Petalburg City to restock, get some Pokeballs, and get an escape rope or two as well, just so I can get out of the cave as well. So after doing that, I went in search of finding something in order to teach Flash to, and Lotad is a Pokemon. After finally giving up and Googling it, I found out that Lotad would be a good one. I think the other decent HM slave is a Zigzagoon. I did run into one, but I killed it by accident, which was very frustrating. So yeah, I came back to the cave here, and once again, running into another Abra, decided to try my luck with a Premier Ball, and lucky enough for me, it worked. So while I'm disappointed I won't be able to have Abra evolve into Alakazam eventually, since I am not able to trade it, Kadabra will be a good addition to the team. So having those 3 slots decided upon, I think I will go for a fire type eventually. I just need to work out which one I do want to go for, but I think having Kadabra there, that'll be able to counter May well enough in the upcoming rival battle. I always view the one that's coming up to be the hardest one out of all of them, because I think it's at that point in the game where you're kind of at just like a midpoint where you're not really strong enough to have a fully established team. And yeah, so then it's a little bit more, well, I know we just barely got through the one that we faced in Rustboro. So yeah, it's one of those situations where I just need to have something that I can throw at it to be able to counter it, and it's, yeah, I'd say it'll be the best one to go for it. And then it'll probably be a good one to use for the electric gym. So another Pokemon that I thought would be a good one would be this Geodude. So just having a rock type coming up against the electric type, it would come in handy, and I didn't actually expect to run into one in this cave, but it does make sense that, you know, you're in a cave area, you're bound to run into some rock Pokemon, so I figured better to be safe and grab one and train it up a little bit later with the EXP share. So I'm just rotating it around with Aaron and getting... I've planned on using it across all 3 of them just to build it up, because I have over leveled my main a little bit, but that's not too bad because it's still getting me through. It's gotten me through the first 2 gyms, and I'll just need some other ones to help me out. So yeah, I've never really had much to do with Steven Stone, so I know he is big in Emerald, but I don't believe he's in Ruby or Sapphire, or he's just got like a lesser presence than that, but I know he's big in Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. I must say that I do find these the PokeNav thing where you're just adding everyone into your contacts. I really wish it was something where you could actively choose whether you put someone in or not just be in a situation where they just go, oh, I'll just add you and then I'll call you all the time and pester you. But yeah, whatever. It's I can just always ignore them, and they might be worth coming back for battles later on. I can imagine some of these early game ones won't be that interesting, but it's cool how the gym leaders keep calling you. It's very much a step that in the direction that they've gone through quite a lot, where the gym leaders play a much larger presence than what they have in previous games, and I think that's good. Like it's very much visible in today's games, and like Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, where Misty and Brock tend to show up quite a lot after you've battled them in the first couple of towns, and then how the gym leaders and Sword and Shield tend to show up quite a lot even after you've beaten them, and you get to face them over and over and over again if you want to in the end game content. So I'm just heading back to Rustboro City to get the EXP share from the other Stone Senior, I guess you'd call him. And so just to add that little device, it's very different compared to what it is nowadays, where you can only have it on one Pokemon, and that helps you out in that sense. But it's not that bad of a thing because I figure I'm just going to use it tactically where I'll have it on whichever one I need to just get a little bit stronger. So I plan on using it on Abra first, evolving it to Kadabra, because then we'll actually learn a attacking move that it'll be able to defend itself with. So Confusion, I believe, is the first one that it learns, and then I'll move it on to using it on probably Aaron and then Geodude. So Geodude is just really a backup. I don't plan on having him as a main fixture in the team, although like a rock type, I think he would only be handy for the electric type. I think I've got everything else fairly well covered. But boxing slack off because it's it's not really for me. It was handy with the yawns, but not much else in that way. So having Abra there is really cool. I'm glad that came out of that little journey into the cave. It wasn't a complete waste of time, even though I was getting quite concerned when I was watching the recording. I was just like, oh geez, I've spent probably a good half an hour in there just battling different things and trying to just find Steven in the dark. It really wasn't the best way to go about going about and finding him. I don't like to look things up all that often in terms of like where you can find Flash and all of that. I prefer to find it just as you go about doing things rather than I didn't really expect it to be right there at the door either. That was quite funny. But yeah, so it's interesting that people say that you can complete this game with only Surf, but you really must need to know your way around that cave in order to find him. I think is it Surf? I think, it's Surf and probably Dive and Waterfall that you need, and you can do it all with a water type Pokemon. So I think you can beat it with like just a water type. You don't really need to worry about flying, even though it'll take a while to get around this great body of water. So I plan on just training up a lot before facing May. So I know that we've got Aqua event coming up, so against Team Aqua, where they're a little bit further ahead. And then we've got the battle with May. So there's no gym leader battle in this upcoming town. We just have a rival battle, which I always remember as a kid I always had a little bit of difficulty with, depending on which starter I had. And I think, would it be better or worse if it was, if I had Combuskin and coming up against a Marsh Top? Look, it's probably each one, you're coming up against the weakness anyway, and it's when they're actually starting to get tough. But the only solution is just to train up a good secondary and have it handle it for you. It's a nice little training area to come across here and to do all of that. So one of the things I really wanted to jump into as well was regarding the Pokemon Max Platinum and Pearl rumors. So I've read another article that talks a little bit more sense than the one that I picked out in the first episode. So I'll just talk about the highlights of that one now, because I find that the article's on Game Rant, and it talks a bit more sense in terms of how it could logically look like that could be the next game that they're looking to bring out, given the certain timeline of when these games first were released and the anniversaries in regards to that and some other Pokemon events. So I'll talk about that one next. So one paragraph in the article that really touches on something that I think is relevant is it says, while there have been numerous leaks and rumors about Diamond and Pearl remakes in development, recent events for other Nintendo franchises suggest that 2021, the series' 25th anniversary, may be the best time to bring them out. That is especially true given the overarching pattern of Pokemon remakes up until now, as well as the fact that Diamond and Pearl are coming up on their own anniversary. So what this is really referring to is that I think using, what they've done with Mario recently, and they do reference that in this article as well, talking about how the Super Mario 3D collection came out for the 35th anniversary of Mario. So they bundled together a collection of games for that, and then they released it probably 3 weeks ago now, which I've been playing as well, and I'm quite enjoying going back through Mario 64, because I think I've said before that it's a game that I've never finished, so I'm going through collecting the stars, and it's actually I'm finding it more challenging than Odyssey. I think I found Odyssey to be quite easy in terms of how they just handed things to you, and it was very it was a bit more linear than what 64 is. Like 64, it opens up a whole bunch of stuff for you to do, and then you have to get a certain amount of stars to unlock the next area, which is what they did in Odyssey, but Odyssey was a lot more contained to one area that I found, rather than having different paintings that you can jump into that have different worlds. So yeah, they talk about that in this article, where they've done that for Mario, and there's suggestions that there's going to be something similar for Zelda during that anniversary as well. Next year, I believe they're referring to. So talking about how they make a point with, it was something that I touched on as well, where I was arguing against it, doing where it's obvious that Diamond and Pearl are the next ones in the series that haven't been remade. So they've remade Fire Red, Leaf Green, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and then that's the next one in line. So Gen 4 would be the next one for the remakes. So the argument that I was making was that it wouldn't make sense for them to come out and do a full remake of the game now, and then in however many years time to come out and do a Let's Go version. So I figured they have to do one version to follow in whatever theme. So they're kind of torn between doing Johto games now, and then doing the next one after that, and so Gen 3 and then Gen 4 in the Let's Go's, or they could come out with a Gen 4 remake next year. So one or the other, I can't see them doing both. It just doesn't make that much sense to me. It does seem silly to go through and make a Johto remake again before doing a Gen 4 remake, and I know that would make a lot of people unhappy. But yeah, it's either that or they split it right down the middle and they go in different directions on both games. So I'd be happy if they did both, because I love being able to play through the stories, and it's almost just like the parts that I enjoy is just like the scenery, the way that things get reconstructed. I've always been a big fan of being able to revisit things. So I think I touched on this in my Metal Gear Solid 4 playthrough that I did like 6 years ago now. But one of the acts is where they go back to the location of the first game, and I found that to be very, very exciting, because I love the first game. I love the area that it was done in. I thought it was such a cool facility in terms of being like an abandoned, I think it was like a containment plant, like a disposal facility, and just how, I loved the theming of it, and I loved it that they went back and re-explored that area many years down the line. So I really enjoyed that about Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, where you went back and pretty much it was my imagination revisited in terms of like what I thought I was playing back when I was a kid, playing through red and blue and yellow. You look at it now and go, geez, what did we really see when we were playing those games? But it really relied on our imagination to come up and fill in the blanks, whereas you look at the Let's Go games nowadays and they really just go all out in terms of design. So I'd be happy with both. I'm not really sure if they'd want to do both. But yeah, the talk of doing it as an anniversary version, I think that'd be really cool. Even if, they bundled together some of the old games and put them all on a cartridge that you could play. Again, that would make some people unhappy, because they'd be slapping a high dollar value on a already released game and making people pay it. That's the criticism that people had of the Mario 3D collection, where how many times have they released Mario 64 now in different versions? You could get it on the DS, you could get it on the virtual console for the Wii and the Wii U, and I think I even bought it on there. It was like $10 or something like that. So like they were charging $60, or American, but in Australia I think it was like $80, something like that, for 3 games that have been out for however long, and you could have bought them for X amount of money a lot cheaper back then, but now you've got them on the Switch and you had to pay this much money to get them. It's one of those things. It'll be interesting to see what they do for the anniversary versions, if they do a complete remake of Gen 4 or not. It is something that's, there's people who love different generations, obviously, and they'll always stand out to bat for their generation that they like the most. And I've even seen a rumor going around, and I think it was another article that I read, where they were talking about how there could be another DLC release coming for Sword and Shield, and it could be the Kalos region, which is from X and Y, because it's based on France, and France is very close to the UK, so then it would make sense to have another region very close by to the Galar region. I think that's a bit of a stretch, because I can't imagine them just wildly pulling out of the blue like, hey, here's a connection to this other game which will probably need remaking soon because it's stuck on the 3DS. But yeah, that was a weird one to come out of left field. But yeah, so I think this article does raise a few good points. So going back to like the point that it made about talking about Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Fire Red, Leaf Green in terms of what they did and the years that they came out in, and then going on to talk about the Mario franchise, and then the Legend of Zelda turning 35 in 2021 is likely to be a big release for that one. And just talking about all the different games that Nintendo have got where they're bringing out anniversary editions for different sorts of things. I'd really love to see a Donkey Kong anniversary thing as well. Like, I really want to play Donkey Kong 64 on the Nintendo Switch now. Like, I do have it on the Wii U, but I didn't find it that exciting playing it through that virtual console. But I think I'd get a lot of enjoyment playing it in handheld mode on the Switch. And I know I could play it in handheld mode on the Wii U tablet, but I feel like the Wii U tablet's very clunky compared to the Switch. It's a very prototype version of what the Switch is. But yeah, take my money, Nintendo. I'm really happy for you to do it, as long as you give me some enjoyable video games to play. So this Scott person keeps popping up from time to time whenever we are saving the day. So what we've got left after this is the trainer battle with May. So I figure I'll go and heal myself first. But yeah, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in terms of what remakes you'd like to see. You know, are you a fan of Gen 4? Like, I've only played it through it once, and I did enjoy it, and I plan on doing another playthrough on this channel eventually. But it is, it's something that it's old enough that I really feel like it needs to be revisited. Where, it's been left long enough in its current form that it could really do amazing things on the Switch if they were to give it the treatment that Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee got. It'd look really cool. And even if if they did what they've done with Sword and Shield, where I really, really love the being able to see what you're running into, as well as having the random encounters as well. But that's one of the things I've found that I'm not enjoying as much, especially when I was running around that cave where I was encountering a lot of just things I just really got tired of running into. It's not that encouraging to go through and complete the Pokedex if I've just got to rely on random encounters and percentages. So I know that some of them in Sword and Shield, because I just went through the other day actually and completed my Isle of Armor Pokedex. I think I only needed like 10 Pokemon or something like that, and going through and researching like what weather patterns they appear in, and whether it's a random encounter in the grass or if they're visible in the overland. I think it's just really well done, and it really motivated me to go and collect everything, because like I can get quite enthusiastic about collecting. I was going through the other day collecting more familiar cards on MapleStory for both my Corsair and my Xenon to have just a wider variety of badges and things, and just going through collecting it. It was just really nice just to be doing that rather than focusing on, bossing or upgrading gear or just, training. So I did get that enjoyment out of Pokemon Sword and Shield, going through and having the smaller Pokedex, going through and completing that. And I figure that's something that they could really do quite well with Platinum, Pearl, and Diamond, if they just came out with 2 versions with all the good content. And then look, DLC, would they really need DLC for it? What could they really do with it? Look, I just love for them to come out with a game that connects all of the continents together, so you can just visit different places. Like, maybe not have stories on each of them, but just have a much wider world and spread it out, because I feel like they did explore the boundaries a little bit with Sword and Shield, especially with the DLC doing different things. But I feel like they could really push the envelope and really come out with something amazing if they're given the time to do it. Like take a a year off and do it every 2 years instead of every one. But I think that's more of a pipe dream than anything else, because they are a business and they do need to push out a product every year, be it DLC or like a full game. But yeah, it's one of those. Yay, Abra's evolving. But yeah, it's one of those unfortunate things where rather than taking your time and working on a masterpiece, they do have to work to deadlines and push things out. So now Kadabra has the ability to defend itself with Confusion. So I'll move the EXP share off it and I'll give it to Aaron instead. So once again, yeah, I'm just working through this whole area, giving it enough, hopefully prep to be able to take on May, and then move on to the next area. So the way that this video is going to go is we'll get up to May and then leave it there, and then the next one will be focused on the next gym against, I believe his name is Watson. Yeah, it's really cool how different, I'll touch on it when we get there, but yeah, just how different the areas look between this and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Yeah, Plusle and Minun, I really don't think that they're that great. I know their base stats are pretty bad, but even the way the AI uses them here, they aren't really that fantastic. Yeah, doing Helping Hand and stuff, and not really utilizing it. I know we're getting through them quite quickly, but yeah, the one being confused and the other one using Helping Hand, that doesn't really get them anywhere. So like the article, going back to that one just quickly, touches on right at the end, just saying that the whether or not the games are in development or not, Game Freak would be missing out on a great opportunity if they didn't do something for 2021. So obviously they will do something for 2021. Looking at what they've even come out with this year, where they've released multiple versions of different mobile games. They've got Pokemon Masters going, they've got Pokemon Go. Yeah, they do have a lot of fingers in different pies, just around different places. And they will have something for the main series, I'm fairly sure of it. In terms of what it actually looks like, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I know they're keeping everything pretty close to their chest, even in regards to directs nowadays, where they aren't having much of a build-up. They're just coming out with things and releasing it and saying, enjoy, off you go. Oh look, another person added to the Pokénav. I'm surprised that they haven't called me as much, because I was expecting that to be like what it's like in Gold and Silver, where, what's his face, youngster Joey, I think is the first one you come across, where you can add him to your phone and they'll call you a lot. But yeah, I think the only ones that have been calling me are like the gym leaders, saying that they've been hearing the great things that I've been doing, and they don't feel so bad about losing to me now that everyone else is losing to me too. Yeah, which is a weird way to look at it. But yeah, so if they don't do them, then it's something where it's almost like, and it's a throwaway comment, but they'll always look to do the remakes, because yes, while they'll be forging their way with new games such as like Sword and Shield and experimenting with different things, they will come back with remakes. It'll always be going back to their back catalogue, seeing what they can refresh and then just bring out, because there's always going to be a new generation of people playing Pokemon, where there's people playing it nowadays who weren't even born when Red and Blue came out, and then I wonder what it's like for them to go back and play something like that, because I'll always look at it with my nostalgic goggles on in terms of how it used to be. But just seeing how people who didn't grow up with a Game Boy or a Game Boy Advance or anything like that, and have only grown up with handheld devices like iPhones and Android phones with touchscreens and all of that, and didn't have like a Nokia brick phone or a Motorola Razr or anything like that, where they were used to technology that couldn't do everything in the palm of your hand, and you'd have different devices for different things. Like even back when the PlayStation Portable came out, like the PSP, and how limited that thing really felt. Like, yeah, it had some great games on it, but you see what the Switch and even the PS Vita do nowadays, and even mobile phones, like I was just referring to, the stuff that those things can do. It's amazing compared to what technology was back then. But that's what happens. Things get get better, things improve. I was just watching, this is a little bit off topic, but I was just watching a video that James May from Top Gear and the Grand Tour was doing on their YouTube channel, Drive Tribe, where he was talking about how he just sold his, or he was selling his old Ferrari because he's decided that he doesn't like old cars anymore because it's got old technology in it. You know, there's people who love the vintage stuff, but then there's other people who look at that and go, geez, how can you really live off using that sort of stuff with how limited it is in its capacity of, being able to do just the basic things that you expect a car to come with nowadays. And it's a fair enough standpoint. Like he says, he acknowledges that there's still people out there who love that sort of stuff, but he's just suddenly decided that he's fallen out of love with it. Would it be something that I see myself falling out of love with? Like, I did go out and buy a Game Boy Advance, a refurbished one, where they'd replaced the screen and all of that, and playing it, I really wondered about how I managed all those years to use something that didn't have a backlight. So if you want to talk about vintage, looking at just how the old Game Boy Pocket, the old brick Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, up until when the SP came out, where you had the ability to turn the backlight on and off, just how we managed to do all of that sort of stuff by, almost by like normal light. So here we are up against May. So my idea going into this was that I am not trained up enough. I feel like my Kadabra isn't high enough to be able to deal with Grovyle. So obviously I'm recording this after the battle, so I know what happens, but I'm just prefacing it with this. I think it does very well to take out Wingull and then to come up against Grovyle, but it's one of those things where I feel like I hadn't trained it enough, and I don't have anything else that is good enough to tackle it. So it's really important to see what happens here, and so this puts me in a pretty bad position, and my confusion does never close enough to being able to handle it. So once I got into this position, it was one of those situations where I just had to try and get lucky. But the moment that May started using Absorb against Marshtomp, I knew that he was going to be in trouble, because no matter the amount of damage that I was going to be putting out, Absorb was always going to be recovering that hand over fist and more. So pretty much keeping it up at almost full health, where I was going down quite quickly. So I was trying to lower its accuracy with Mud Slap just to try and give myself a chance to have some misses, but unluckily I just didn't get any misses. And so then moving on to a rock type, which probably wasn't the best choice either, given the weakness to ground type there. And then having things like Aaron, it's got Headbutt, which it's a fairly good move. So now I'm starting to get the misses here, and if it was stronger, I feel like this would be a good alternate as well, like Kadabra is. But just having a skill like Absorb, I really feel like going the water type and having Grovyle as the opponent with Absorb, it's probably the hardest one to face. I can't really think of a situation where any of the others would be harder, because coming up against, if you went with Blaziken as your starter and you were coming up against Marshtomp with water, it'd still be very bad, because it'd be super effective against you, but at least he wouldn't be healing back all the time. So I think it puts Grovyle in the best position where May's able to just constantly recover on him, and then she's really got a good advantage there. The one thing I was surprised at was this part. This was very interesting. I was wondering whether I was actually going to be able to beat Grovyle with a level 4 Lotad, because it got pretty close. And then, it was whiteout time. So I don't view whiteout as being that bad of a thing. It's just, I still gain some EXP from doing that, and if it comes to coming up against opponents where I just constantly lose out like that, I'm happy to do it, because it's still, you're still gaining something, as long as you're not losing too much money. Because I think, in the first game, I think it was very bad to be losing, because I think you lost like 50% of your income or something like that, or the money you had on hand. So that's it for this episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on anything I've talked about in this video in regards to the Pokemon Max, Pearl, and Platinum rumors that don't seem to be going away, my random comments about vintage cars and James May, and anything else in between. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.